Welcome back. Well, yes, indeed, we've got Dr. Ekhomu joining us this morning. Good morning, and thank you for joining us again today. Well, listening to that report and several reports, and even a month, 2, a year, 3 years back, you just asked several questions, almost the same kind of questions as to why we don't have results on some of these things. And it does appear as though it's a one day, one kidnap story, another narrative. And then for those who just say, look, we are at war, can we fault them?
Good morning, Chamberlain and Mr. Ayo Makinde. No, we can't fault them. We are really at war, unless we don't want to acknowledge the truth. We are at war. It's not a conventional war. Like the Nigeria-Biafra war. It's not a conventional war like that. It's not a conventional war like the Second World War, but we're at war. It's an asymmetrical warfare. The threats live among the population, or in this case, with Kaduna, they are in ungoverned spaces, they are in the bush, and they target those local governments around Rugu Forest there. They target all those local governments, Chikun and what have you. That Chikun is where they took those people from, where they attacked the church yesterday. So, I mean, because we are losing, the other day there was a report that I think 3,000 people had been killed in a year in, I think, Zamfara State in this undeclared warfare. Many wars, like the first Gulf War, they didn't record that many deaths. And that was a full-blown war, state against state, United States and its allies against. I think the problem here is that we are not defining it properly. You know, to solve a problem, you have to first define the problem properly. And when you define that problem properly, then you can now go to the solution. We call that structured argumentation. You must take the problem, break it down into its component parts, then solve those little component parts, and then re-aggregate it back such that you have a solution to the issue at hand. And we are not able to do this because I don't know why. We have very bright people in government. Perhaps they are not seeing it that way, or maybe there is no appetite for solving the problems, and so on and so forth. Whatever it is, I'm not sure, but we need to really, whether it's at the federal, whether it's at the state, or whether it's at the local government level, we need to start solving some of these problems so that the system doesn't become overloaded. Because where we are headed right now, we are getting to a point, that's why you see crisis in Zamfara, in the northwest, northeast, north central, south-south, southeast, southwest, you know. So you have crisis all over. And what's going to end up happening is that the system is going to be overloaded and then perhaps lead to an implosion. That is what happens. So the governance is about improving people's lives, solving people's problems. That is why all that power is given to you, whether you go back to Westphalian Treaty or whatever concept, Montesquieu, whatever concept of governance you want to go back to. But let's just take Westphalian Treaty, where the principle of sovereignty was established. So give all this coercive power to some individuals, and they are supposed to maintain that coercive power and serve the populace. And now, when you have things like this happening, the governance doesn't mean you should be so proud and arrogant. Don't ask for people's help. Ask for their help if you need their help.
Well, oh dear, wait.
Enroll them. I think I was talking with Ayo. The tenable and unacceptable.
People need to be alive first before they listen to what anybody else wants to do. Should the narrative now shift to people getting that or their level of security consciousness way higher than they have ever. Corporate organizations, individuals, should they be talking about, gentlemen, wherever you are, whoever you are, begin to think about how you need to protect yourself first? Because now we've seen attacks in churches. People are killed, several are kidnapped. Private schools, people are killed, several people kidnapped, demanding astronomical fees. And the authorities will always say we're on top of it or we're doing what we can. So how seriously should that conversation about people doing what they can within the law to protect themselves be?
Thank you. Well, I don't know whether I'm going to go so far to say protect themselves, but people should be security conscious. Now, security conscious in collaboration with government. That's what the point I was making just then, that government should not feel so proud to come to the people and say, listen, we want to get you involved in the security architecture of the country. Because right now, the government is overwhelmed because all we hear are these warnings, don't you ever try this thing again, don't pay ransom. But if my child is kidnapped, I'm going to pay ransom. I mean, it's as simple as that. You know, I'm going to do whatever I can to get that child released. It doesn't matter what some government official is saying, because it's not his problem, it's my problem at that point in time. So what does that translate into? It means, I think I was telling Mr. Lagvide again, I love Mr. Bakende, I was telling him about TAPIs, terrorist attack precedent indicators. Those are very important. We need to educate our populace what are these things that they need to look out for, that will tell them that the vulnerability is too much, or that there's an impending attack, in fact. Because if you know that there's an impending attack, then you can take steps to protect yourself. You know, so we need to create more of a messaging, more of a narration of security awareness around the country. We need to hear from the authorities. They need to tell us how to protect us. If they attack some top government official, they are already strengthened. They have, what do you call it? They have all kinds of security to protect them. But I don't have that kind of security to protect me as an individual, and so many other Nigerians. The average Nigerian doesn't have that. So we have to depend on public security. So give us the information that will help us strengthen ourselves such that we can do things for ourselves even before you get to us. Now, let me say this quickly, Chamberlain. Everywhere in the world, the government does not go out to protect everybody. What the government does, the government security forces, what they do is they provide rapid response. So first is that little lady by the window who sees some unusual activity taking place outside that will call the police. So where is the 911 number to call? We don't have it as a national system. So somebody needs to be able to call the police and say, look, I'm seeing some bad guys here. Something needs to be done about this. You know, and that call must be logged at the emergency response center. Now, there's an agency in this country, it's called NCC. They are supposed to provide that everywhere. Now, I even heard some advert on the news recently from them saying that, oh, they have a 112 number. It's a lie. I have tried it because I have worked with some state governments.
No, that network can't pull this on us, but
not now.
We'll get him back, definitely. You know, I was going to go there because, look, for the average person out there, the first thing is, look, if you notice anything, if you see something and you're supposed to say something, if you call any of those numbers, because that's the first line many people will adopt or will try, and then you don't get any response. What can be more frustrating?
I remember that even Lagos State had this special, I think it was 767 or something like that. You know, how effective that is over time, I guess we'll listen to.
Yeah, some actually call that and then they get response from 767.
One of the things that's really, really disturbing about all of these things is the question you asked about the people. See, many times we wonder, and I think we should even really take this to Dr. Ekhomu when we're able to get him back, because ultimately it is about the people. You know, what we hear when, you know, anything happens, we hear that people are attacking soft targets. For God's sake. Is it that we don't know that they're going to attack the soft targets? You know, we spoke, you know, behind the scene about, and we've even on air, we've spoken so many times about, you know, intelligence gathering and all of that. Question that you want to ask is it that we do not have the intelligence or we do not act on the intelligence? When we get information, what do we do? Now, we have heard over and over again that, you know, governors get security reports, they have intelligence information, and of course, you know, the assumption then would be there is a veiled knowledge of sorts, even if it's a blatant knowledge, that the attacks on the Owerri facilities, for instance, would happen. What did we do about it? I heard, you know, one of the analysts previously said, you know, maybe, you know, they had the information, but they couldn't really defend themselves because they were overpowered. I thought there was something they call calling for backup. What happened to that?
You know, that's why the comments of Benue State Governor, many will revisit it and ask themselves, wait a minute, so are there points in some of what he said as a result of several other recent events that you've seen happen? So those are the things that lend credence.
You know,
to those comments.
There is this phrase you attribute to me most of the time, shape shifting. You know, but you know, that's the thing. I mean, you know, on the one hand, it is this from this region, it moves to that one, it goes by another name. From this region, it moves to another region, goes by another name. All of it is achieving one thing: killing people, causing unrest. You know, so what is the game plan? I remember once we engaged Mr. Amakri, and I wanted to ask him just before we ran out of time, is there a grand plan here? Someone, I think I even asked him on air, is there some grand plan that people are not aware of, that people ought to be aware of? And when Dr. Ekhomu is saying that, you know, when you asked about, you know, what should people do to defend themselves, and he is saying that maybe people shouldn't defend themselves, but they should know what to do about security. But the defense chief
said it. What do you do
the defense chief said
it's not about defending yourself?
Come on, the defense chief said, for instance, don't be afraid of the bandits. Okay, so a bandit is coming at me with AK-47 or AK-49. I heard that for the first time on this program. And then all I have is what? Nothing. Not everyone is like that Abuja lawyer that could attack, you know, gunmen with a cutlass. Not everyone has that kind of courage, you know. And for God's sake, even those that is his own compound. What happens if it's a face me, I face you?
Well, look, as it is right now, as the stark reality is that you have to have some sort of courage now to protect yourself and your family. You can't just be a sitting duck and just let these things, you know, just come upon you just like that. In several cases, yes, the elected authorities were supposed to look to them to provide those kind of situations, but you always talk about the trust quotient with security agencies. Can the average person call those numbers in the event that they go through, and you expect a response in how many minutes or how many hours?
In good enough time. I'm wondering, for instance, what Malcolm would have to say about all of this, because, you know, okay, it would seem like the Federal Capital Territory is like in the middle of the country, and there are a number of states that are having unrests all around the Federal Capital Territory. How soon, God forbid, before it gets into the capital city itself? Abuja has been attacked before. Thankfully, during this administration, I don't think we've had anything like that. But, you know, it's really, really, really troubling what one is hearing. And, Marco, I don't know what your take is on all of this while we wait for Dr. Ekhomu.
Well, if I tell you that, you know, residents that I have spoken with are not apprehensive, I'll be telling you very big lies. I mean, on my other show, the hard copy, which I anchor, I have had calls to speak with guests who are residents of Abuja. And I remember one of them, you know, a former ambassador who served in Ethiopia, also served in Sierra Leone, who says, look, if we're seeing visuals of, you know, bandits, kidnappers, you know, brandishing rocket-propelled grenades right here in Niger State, which is just a neighbor to the Federal Capital Territory. What exactly, you know, who says that what happened in Sierra Leone, where one day, according to him, you know, they woke up one day and the city had been overrun, cannot happen here? Who says that? So there are residents who are apprehensive as to what is going on in the Federal Capital Territory. And don't forget that, you know, a few weeks ago, let me say about 2 months ago now, we saw the governor of Nasarawa State come to the villa to complain about terrorists who had overtaken certain roads leading to the Federal Capital Territory. Even though we understood later on, I mean, due to phone calls that I made later on, that situation had been handled and they had been pushed back. But there have been incidences where it would seem that, you know, there is encroaching danger into the Federal Capital Territory from the news that we gather from neighboring states. So, I mean, these are things that are happening all around us. If Nasarawa is experiencing problems, if Niger State is, you know, experiencing issues, and you're seeing, you know, dangerous weapons going around at the end of the day, who says that, you know, we in the Federal Capital Territory can sleep with both eyes closed? It is a very, very worrisome situation, gentlemen. I must let you in on this.
And, you know, when some of those government officials make some of those comments, people are quick to criticize them. But sometimes, you know, before we react, maybe constructively criticize, you need to take a step back. When you made reference to what the Minister of Defense talked about, protecting, people should protect themselves, people need to try and listen to what is he not saying. So if that is in his mindset, his train of thought, something must have triggered it. Remember, he's in government. So they will be doing what they can to protect citizens, which is why, I mean, which is what they're elected to do, what they're expected to do. So if he then makes that kind of comment, you need to ask yourself, so could it be, of course, there will be several conspiracy theories.
Absolutely.
Could it be that they try what they can and then can't pull it? Or could it be that they don't know how to let Nigerians know, well, we're doing what we can, we're short, we're falling short? Could it be that they don't even know how to reach out to people and let them know, how do we bring you all in to say, look, this is where we are? So there's so many theories out there. But if it then says protect yourselves, you may internalize it whichever way, but importantly, we need to begin to change our mindsets in terms of how we internalize some of these pieces of information out there. You have to be alive first.
Absolutely.
People, states, organizations, communities, they need to begin to think about pulling together. Because pulling together, you know when they say, what, 3-4 cord is not easily broken, when you pull together that way, you could even get information that the authorities will require. So that way, there could be that symbiotic relationship between communities, security agencies. After all, you have community policing. They've been talking about it for a while, how they want individuals to be part of it. So it just may be about time. Look at things that you normally overlook. The persons you pass every day on the street, have a second thought. Don't always be in a hurry. We're always rushing somewhere and we say we'll never get there. Take a step back. Security is a big deal now.
Absolutely.
And it should always be.
Well, all we have is news. All people, you know, get is news, is the information that the media puts out. So if the media is replete with news of insecurity, while there are other things in the news, bad loans, killing Nigerian economy, state governments not able to make enough money to take care of themselves, unemployment figures rising, opportunities, you know, that people can take advantage of, and security is the only thing. I'm wondering if there is any other things that one can say. Marque?
But it is the person who's alive who can worry about the economy and worry about, you know, whether inflation is running away or not. The first thing you have to do is be alive. And when you're alive, there is hope. When you talk about defense, the Minister of Defense asking Nigerians to defend themselves. Don't forget that we saw a prime example here in the Federal Capital Territory of a resident doing that. And, you know, I remember how you guys gleefully jumped on that story of a resident who had only a machete and was attacked by people who invaded his home with guns and who was successfully able to chase them out of his house. I want to believe that that's because he's also envisaged such a situation and planned towards it. In case this kind of thing should happen, you know, what will be my first line of defense? What can I do before I even call in the vigilante? And I think that that's one plan that almost every Nigerian must have right now. They mustn't take security for granted.
All right, I think we've got Dr. Ekhomu back. So, Dr. Ekhomu, unfortunately, the network's not being kind on us this morning. So, if you could go ahead and give us your concluding thoughts as we wind down.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want to follow up from what Ms. Mokbe was saying a minute ago, that the citizens have a lot of strengths of their own. Citizens should know that we live in very troubled times, and that the government has demonstrated capacity to not be able to take care of our security needs. So we need to help ourselves. And then in doing that, because if my home is safe and my street is safe, my neighborhood is safe, my community is safe, my government is safe, then the state will be safe, and ultimately the nation will be safe. So I think that's what we call a scalar model of national security. So I think we need to in a lot of security education. There's a lot of books out there. I wrote a book back in 2009 called Effective Personal and Corporate. It's still available, it's still on the market. There are many resources out there about common sense ways that you can protect yourself and protect your family. And then when the threat moves up the ladder to national security threats like these gunmen, for example, if you know that there is a lot of attacks against people traveling on certain stretches, like somebody said a minute ago that we now travel by a train to Kaduna from Abuja, where it's a recognition of the threat level there. And so these are simple ways that we can keep our, like you said, Mr. Chamberlain, we have to be safe first before the country security forces can get to us.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Ekhomu. Always a pleasure to have you on.